being recorded.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for making the time to join us and to talk about your experience with community networks. It's a real pleasure to be able to connect with you. I know some of you on a personal level, and yeah, I think that you're not only amazing people, but also experts in your fields when it comes to community networks. And so just wanted to able to facilitate a bit of a call and get a recording of you sharing a bit about your expertise in this area. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Ben Tater. I am now the community steward for the Earth Defenders Toolkit. I also am founder and leader for a project called AHO as well, which is this thing. So yeah, why don't we kick around if we don't mind doing some quick introductions, your name, where you're calling from, and just briefly some experience, your experience with community networks. Nico, would you be happy to start us off, please?
Sure. Hi, my name is Nico Pache. I am calling from the rural areas of the Córdoba province, called a village called José de la Quintana, where I'm living now. I work for the Association for Basic Communications and have been working in the field of community networks for probably 5 or 6 years, more or less, providing capacity building, movement building, like weaving, connecting people one to each other, and traveling around the world, sensitizing about these topics in global forums and engaging with the technical community to make them aware of 5 or 6 years. Esther says. Okay, thank you, Esther. Sensitizing the technical community in relation to the needs of the rural communities. Thank you for the invitation.
Sanket, why don't you go next first, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Sanket. I'm taking this meeting from Bangalore, that's where I live. That's in India. And I guess I've been involved with community network or community radio since 2018. And 2019 is when we converted our radio attempts into a network. And then post that, we've been invited in Odisha, where there's a lot of indigenous groups, to build a small community network there. Then we even deployed a community radio in another indigenous group in South India in the hills in Kotagiri area. And that group has again invited us to build a community network in a different field. So that's my experience with community networks in India. And it's been fun, like meeting people, understanding how communities can, build their own infrastructure, can be more independent, and learning from communities across the world. That's been a fun ride so far.
Awesome. Thank you, Sanket. Yeah. Esther?
Hi, my name is Esther. I'm currently in Seattle doing grad school in computer science. I've been studying community networks for grad school, and I'm now a 7th-year PhD student, which is why I proposed that Nico is longer than 5 to 6 years in this field, because I've known him that entire time pretty much. And yeah, I think I worked on my first community network before I knew it was a community network in 2012. So I would say I feel pretty lucky that I encountered this community first through the academic space. And then now meeting all these practitioners around the world, I've got to work very closely with Nico and like travel around and work with many different community networks, which is where my experience comes from. And so I would say I'm probably kind of Nico's student. Yeah. So I'll pass it to Marcial.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, we have also joining us from Mexico, we have Marcial and Chesky. If you want to do a quick introduction, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marcial Palacios. I'm from San Francisco, Xochitiopan, which is here in this place. What I do is what most people doing here. It's farming, but also I'm in charge with one of them of our internet community or network community. And I'm just learning. It's been almost 3 years already. And yeah, and I don't have much to say unless you guys ask me. Yeah, I'm Marcial. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Hi, I am Chasky. I've been working like in a process of community communications, like radio community, community televisions, like since 10 or 15 years in Chile first, then in Mexico, and like 4 years ago we started working and digging into the internet system, into digital communication servers, infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and because we saw this, like we need to like upgrade. So radio is not obsolete. Sorry, radio is not obsolete, but we needed to also embrace this new technology and give it to the communities and see how we can like manage this in other way, not also in the like the consumer way. So we start doing like testing in labs in our offices, and then we start to go into communities. And this is the first community here in Xochitiopan, in the state of Puebla, in Mexico, where we could like start to doing this experience that where we all the things that we have been learning in the labs and in workshops where we meet with Nico also, we can share it with the communities in a way they can grab it and use it for them. So that's what we have been doing here. We have also starting to, well, I'm taking over. We are also starting to do like systematization of the workshops and all the knowledge we have been working here. We are going. Then you already knew this, and so that's we're doing this project here. We are sharing what we have learned, and we are also learning a lot from Marciani, also for Oyuki, who's the other person who is working here. So that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chesky. And yes, I have been reading that guide and learning so much. It's amazing work that you're doing, sharing your learning as you're developing it. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Okay, so to kick us off, we're gonna do like a couple of like quick fire questions just to see. I know we could talk about your experience for a long time, but yeah, we're gonna play a little game where I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand and to keep it raised until we find like a winner or something along those lines. So can you all raise your hand and keep your hand raised if you've been working on community networks for more than 1 year? Yeah, raise your hand. Okay, more than 2 years. Keep it raised. More than 5. More than 7. Esther. Awesome. Okay, the next one we have. Okay, raise your hand and keep your hand raised if you've built or supported a network with more than 5 nodes. No? More than 5? No? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get 5 what?
More than 5 nodes or like endpoints or something. Yeah? Okay. What about more than 10? More than 15? More than 20? More than 30?
What do you mean by nodes? Like a central node or like a house node?
What are you keeping your hands up for? Nico?
Well, in my case, so it really depends. In the mesh networks, both access nodes and mesh nodes. So the backbone infrastructure and the access infrastructure are both the same. So in general, what ends up happening is you have one, let's say, liver router in the case of the using liver routers, but it doesn't have to be the case, per household or per grouping of households. In let's say in Quintana, for example, where I am living, there are 40 nodes of that kind, where people can both spread the network and also access the network. But that's a node in my point of view, but it can be also a cell tower, like in Esther's examples, or a hotspot in a fixed infrastructure, in a fixed wireless setup.
So more like a connection point. Esther, maybe you can tell us. You said large mesh networks are very large. What's very large?
Well, so I mean, I've participated in NYC Mesh, which is several hundred nodes now. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's I mean, like if you're involved in a mesh network that's very large, sometimes it can be easier to participate because there are so many opportunities. And so yeah, I guess it's not really a size doesn't matter in this case in terms of experience, I would say.
But it's still I think it's great to know, like, you know, several hundred nodes running on a community network. That's amazing, you know, for a community supported infrastructure. It's really great to hear about. Yeah.
Well, you have the Giphy net that has thousands of nodes.
Yeah.
So tens of thousands. It's 30,000 or something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, thank you.
That's all one network, is it? The Giphy or the NYC mesh? It's all one network.
That's amazing. Wow. And how many people does it take to support that size of a network? Like, there's a lot of people. Is it full-time employment, people doing it?
Yeah, yeah. It's Giphy is a community network of small internet service providers. So the people that participate in the network are the ones that provide service in different areas. They have agreements in relation to how they relate with each other, how they relate with their customers, and some of the networks are small internet service providers, and some of the networks are small community networks themselves. So of the kind that I am more familiar with, that are the ones that the people that use the network are the ones that are part of the network. But it's huge, and I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really interesting to hear. I also want to ask. Let's try over distance. So, how many of you have supported the development of a community network that's larger than, like, I don't know, 1 kilometer radius or squared? Yeah. Larger than 5 kilometers squared? Larger than 10 kilometers? Point to point? End to end? Larger than 30? Wow, okay. Let's go 50 kilometers.
So the network here the network here in the valley, it's an interconnection of networks. So all the community networks here are interconnected by a backbone network that connects to the city. It's 60 kilometers. And it spreads further away, but the longest link is 56 or something like that. Nico, what about you?
Yeah, we build with the community radios in the coast of Oaxaca. We build like a backbone between 3 communities, and the extent of like the most long connection, it was like 35 kilometers. The other one is like 30. We connect in the total. We connect like 85 kilometers. Because also the backbone has another we connect the communities, but from the communities because we have to use like cerros, hills, then we have to take the signal to the radio, so that like add some more kilometers to the network. And finally, we end up with a network in line of 85 kilometers, and that. But it was there was like the desafío, the difficult thing was the spectrum was really saturated, really saturated. So because there, like it's not a big enterprise giving internet, big ESP, internet service providers. There are many like local and private providers of internet. So the spectrum was really saturated. So we have to like look for, and what finally we can make the whole connection, and that backbone is using by the not by the community but the radios. That.
Awesome. Sanket put in the question, curious to know if these long links are one hop or multi hops.
What do you mean what by hubs and multi hubs?
Sanket?
It's like, yeah, so you just use like two routers, like one single point-to-point link, or you had to create an intermediate like a link so that it will reach from the source and the destination, you know?
Nico, ¿tú entiendes lo que están preguntando?
Maybe you can
Sí,
help.
so, la pregunta es si para hacer toda esa distancia lo haces en un solo enlace o lo haces en múltiples saltos. Si necesitas torres y más de una antena. Y eso. Yeah, so the answer to your question, Sanket, is yes. It is something that happens in a multi-hop scenario where he goes from hill to hill to get to the distance that he needs to get.
Yeah, it was multi-points. There were finally like 5 or 6. Now that I don't know because it's growing. I haven't gone to Mexico, to Oaxaca, but that network is growing. The people there is growing it, and we have to like build a tower. We have to We have to make an accord with the state, with the government, to have access to a certain point of a hill, so we can put these towers. And in the third big point, we use like a house of a teacher who is just in the top of a hill, and over their third floor, we have to put a long mastile, of metal. And for that distances, we have to do like hard work in the infrastructure, not only in the antennas, but in the towers. We have to put also for the lightings, because we have to protect the people who's putting their house in risk, because we put the tower in the roof of their house. So it was a hard work that there's a video of that. We can share it later.
Awesome. That would be great. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that. Okay, cool. I got another couple more questions. Okay, put your hand up if you've helped to build new software to support community networks. Anybody worked on the software end of things? Yeah, amazing. What about hardware, the hardware side of things? Anybody developing hardware? Nico, amazing. Yeah, I know you're doing some tweaking with the hardware, right? Okay. And what about people that are working on the rules, like the legislation or some of the rules to support community, you know, the infrastructure, the development of community networks? Is anybody working on that side of things as well? Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you. And okay, the main question, who is currently calling from a community network? Chasky and Marcial. Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Okay, I want to know what are some of the motivations? Like why do people set up community networks? Why don't we just all plug into the local or the internet service provider? What's your experience been with that? Open question. Anybody can go.
I mean, I can kick off, but I want to hear more than speak. So what the people I have encountered in general get into community networks because there are no alternatives, or because the alternatives are not at their reach. For example, El Hormiguero Community Network, a fiber community network in the suburbs of Buenos Aires. They got into doing community networks, even being in the capital city of the country, because it was the fixed infrastructure was not getting within the slum that they were working, and mobile internet was ridiculously expensive for the community living in the suburbs, in the slum. She's offering me a tomato. And in rural areas, it happens that there are no options, or in general, the options are for the more wealthy people, because it's as it is more it's difficult to get to these areas. People charge more for the same service that you would get in the city. That's yeah, what can I say?
Thank you. Are there other reasons, like other than like there's no maybe there's no connectivity option provided by an internet service provider, and so I'm guessing that's probably the main reason people set up community networks. Is there other reasons why people, in your experience, have you seen other reasons where there's a local service provider, or there is an internet service provider that's available, but actually we're going to do something else? Thanks, Esther.
Yeah, I would say, well, a lot of my experience, because of where I live, is in urban areas, and people build them for political reasons. That's where some, like basically software development happens because people are kind of politically motivated and they have resources. They might not themselves be people who don't have service, but they could be working for those who don't have service, or also, like, they might not like the surveillance of the other internet service providers. They might want to have, basically, it can be kind of a hacker motivation, like a wanting to learn about the technology and wanting to get the experience of building it and have fun. That's also a big motivation. So yeah, I've worked with NYC Mesh. We also have the Seattle Community Network here in Seattle now, and it is about providing service to the underserved for free, because we can do that. We have the power to build that infrastructure, and it's also, now we support several training programs. We support students who are learning on the infrastructure, and so we we're running it as a nonprofit. We're using it for educational opportunities and also using it to provide service.
Thank you.
Can I speak?
Please.
Well, I don't know if you hear me well, and it's also it's again the people talking here, but well, main reason is like here in Xochitl, it was a service before, and it also still exists, but it's not so good. So the community needed a better service, and this we can put it in the same bag of don't having services. That's one people. That's one reason. Another reason is also because many communities here in Mexico, they have like this cooperative system of doing the farming, or like the Tosepan system that Nico also talked. That's also another reason, like integrate another cooperative into the community system and bring the benefits of it. This in Puebla is not so many scenes, but in Oaxaca, where we have been working, it has been seen a lot. So that's another reason that we are working here. No, the community had we entered with the community about this necessity, but we were also thinking to give the community more autonomy, more autonomous capacity by building this infrastructure, not also for the internet, for the communications, but also for the benefits economical. Because the community was spending money in this private system, and the money it was not a good services, and the money was going out. Now we have a good system that works, and the money stays here, and that brings more benefits to the community. And the third thing we're also wanting, or what we are planning to do, or what we try to do in here in Xochitl, is that we have just made we're working in a agreement with the school here, with the high school that is here. Pásate, Yuki. With the high school that is here, and sorry.
Yeah, sorry, somebody just got here.
and, and the third reason is like through this agreement to integrate students to the system, to show them how to do like maintaining the system, but also this is going to do like educational process to the community. We dream that in many years from now, all the community, or all the members of the community has been through the school. They put 1 year in working with the internet system, so they know how to configure a router. They know what is Wi-Fi. They know what is an IP, a DNS. That's our dream, to bring through this to like know about technology, about the I put nervous, but I want to say alfabetización digital. We want to alphabetize the people about digital technology, about digital things, because now it's in everywhere, and everywhere, and but we know so few about it. And that's the thing. That's the three things we're working here also in Xochitl. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's so interesting. The people of Xochitl are going to be amazing network engineers.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
He was talking about dream, and I also have one. It's similar. That I always talk to Uyuki, which is here. What I dream is the money that we get from our internet service. I believe that in I don't know, I would say 10 years, uh, we maybe we can have our own taxi service from this community. Um, we can teach people how to. I mean, this is like we can do it now. We can people can learn how to use the right way the smartphones, computers. People can learn so they don't stay in back. We have to continue um, ¿cómo se dice? With technology. You know, I know that we're from our hometown, which is small. We're only 11,000 people. I mean, no, 1100,000. No. 11. It's 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah, I say 1100 people only. So it's really small, and I know that there is a problem with when we're talking like now. There is someone who speaks by like speaker who speaks like loud, and so I want to show them or to teach them that they can probably, you know, with social media you can post anything, any news, good news, not bad news, so everybody know, and you don't have to hear what they say or the music what they put with it you don't like. Yeah, I know I have a lot of to say, but my English, I'm just practicing right now because I lived in New York for 12 years, but I've been here in Mexico for 5 years already. So my English is not that good right now. I have to keep practicing. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for me.
We understand you really well, Marcian, and thank you for sharing. It's really interesting. Sanket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a similar scenario as like Nico mentioned, like lack of alternatives available in the rural areas would be one of the major starting points of building a community network. But it can soon take a different purpose that could be the driving force for continuation of that network. Like Marcel and that area, they've said like digital literacy, teaching computers, teaching technology could be one driving force. And we realize that is probably a precursor needed to build community networks in such remote areas. Like um, for the community to truly take ownership, they need to know what they're building with, what softwares they're using, everything, right? So that kind of is now kind of bundled when we say community networks in that sense, I guess. And the recent one that I was involved with was, though there was availability of like 4G in that neighborhood, they wanted to get like one whole, you could call it a slum neighborhood to come together. So they wanted to build a community network as a medium so that they could get them together and educate the people. They were living close to a forest area, so they wanted to bring in more wildlife awareness programs within that community. And so though everyone had smartphones and they had their own data, personal data packs, they thought this could be one way to get a community together. So that was the first community that I was involved with, where it was not lack of choice, but more of like a different purpose to start a community.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea that by solving a community problem as a community, you create new community resources, economic opportunities, learning. It's amazing. It's such I really love that approach to it. Thank you all for sharing. Esther, if I know that you're short on time, so if you have to leave, don't worry, just leave us when you need to. But we'll continue on. I'm really interested, I think, and a lot of people would also love to hear, based on your experience, you've been working on these things for quite some time, building things. What would you recommend to people? Like whether it be a recommendation of a guide, Like, what's your favorite things that you have found within your experience of community networks that you would say, if you're going to build a community network, read this book or watch this video or buy this piece of hardware, or whatever you do, don't buy this other one because, whatever that may be. I would love to spend some time hearing your recommendations based on your experience. Yeah, who wants to kick us off with that one? Who's got something that's already bubbling up for them? And you can come back in if something else comes up for you as well.
I would say the best thing that they can do is to get close to another community network that is like-minded, like similar to them, because the contexts are so different. The realities that it's so difficult to model one like a cookie cutter, one way of doing things that will fit everyone and anyone. As today there are so many options and ways to approach the problem, and we have discussed so much for so many years about this. Today there are many options, like the way New York City Mesh has done, is beating the commercial competition in the most densely populated and wealthy area of our planet, or how, as I was saying earlier, how El Hormiguero in Argentina is doing fiber optics in slums for providing connectivity to soup houses, but also to different community organizations. Also, as here in the rural areas where communities want to organize and participate directly in their own connectivity using the Libre router and what Altermundi is doing. I would say you need to find your tribe. You need to the community networks is like a whole civilization of possibilities, but then you need to understand better, to deepen to get to understand better which one you are more like, to have a better guidance. And then, yeah, definitely the word of mouth, like getting to know each other in person, is extremely strong if it's possible. And there are community networks all around the world, not in every country, but I would say in tens of countries. So it's good to reach out.
Thank you for that, Nico. Just before we come to you, Esther, Nico, what do you recommend around how do people find what's like the best place for me to go if I want to get started with community network? I want to find someone that's like close to me, that's already has one. Is there like a magic list or an awesome list somewhere of community networks that are happening and who to call?
I guess the answer to that would be just Nico himself. Talk to
Yeah,
Nico.
just call Nico. Nico, can you please share your phone number?
Yeah, I mean, everyone can reach me at nico@itc.org, but there are a few lists. There is an awesome list. I think Eric Nietzsche built one some time ago. But as it is it's a movement that is being built. It's not a stable movement, and there are situations like, for example, that the space is has not so well defined boundaries yet. Like, it's difficult to, like, the ones that know that are community networks, they really know, but there are people that might be a community network that they don't know that they are, so it's difficult for them to identify themselves as such. So there's no map. What I would say is that you can check APC newsletter on community networks, where we disseminate information about community networks regularly in a monthly basis. we have been doing it for I think 50 months already. So there's quite a bunch of a lot of information there. And yeah,
Awesome.
that will be one resource. Yeah.
Over to you, Esther.
I just wanted to add to that in terms of even for kind of the technical components. I know, it really varies a lot, like where people are starting from in terms of the technology, their technical knowledge and experience. And so you really want to like have those personal connections so you know who to ask questions to. It really helps if you can, contact the developer community. Like, let's say you're using Libra Router, like you will probably have to ask some kind of questions to somebody at some point. And so that goes for, I think, any technology. Some are a little bit easier because if you buy stuff that's very popular off the shelf, like Ubiquiti or some MikroTik routers, then you'll have a large community of people online who are talking about it. For like we use LTE, like a lot of buy cells equipment in our network. And so of course the buy cells operator like Facebook group has been really, really helpful. Just even knowing, okay, what are the bugs, what are the security patches, like all of that. And so hooking into that like community of practice technically is also very important.
Awesome, thank you. Sanket.
Yeah, I would like the second of what all these people said, like you need to have that community and interact with the community more than a book. I think talking to people, visiting the networks or visiting conferences like DWeb, where you get to meet a lot of people who come from the community networks background. And APC has been like very helpful for us. And through APC, I got to visit other community networks, and that inspired me to stick to this field and dive deeper and try to solve issues and be part of this community. And that's been a major driving force, like a community for community networks in that sense. Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you.
It's our turn, yeah?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
There's two questions. The first question is this, like, what have inspired us? And the second question is like, what equipment we recommend to build the community?
Yeah,
The first question I'm going to answer. But here in Mexico, well, totally the work of Altermundi, the work of Libre Mesh, the work of Libre Router, also by Altermundi, and the people from Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi.net. I think they also came here in some moment, and I think that connection like made us to start working here. So in that answer, like the work of Nico and the work of Altermundi here in Mexico is really what has inspired us. This group that is working, the Redes group that is working, all the groups that are working here, we're working. I think it was a convenient, something happened. I think the people came here, and that's like, I think, so what I want to say that like this crossing people, that this kind of calls and the workshop and the meetings where we can share our experience, I think it's really important to detonate another things, because that's why I think we are here. And the second question about what equipment do you recommend, Marcial? You are the one who's building here the thing.
What I recommend.
Dijiste que pues, depende de la situación. Es como difícil de recomendar algo en específico.
Yeah, it's hard to answer. I mean, it's hard question for me, because it depends where you are. Depends a lot of depends for the place you are.
Ya, pues que pues, sí que hemos probado distintas marcas, estamos trabajando con marcas y hemos probado distintas marcas y pues la que ahorita nos está resultando es Altai.
We yeah, talking about antennas, we have tried a lot of I mean not a lot of but a few uh, brands or marcas,
Yeah.
yeah. And we keep I mean we liked Altai, it calls Altai. Yeah, that's what we recommend. This antenna it's good, it works well, it goes very well.
Yeah, it's like he's saying in Marcial, it depends. It depends a lot. It depends, but the thing that the just shared us with the girl from New York. I don't remember her name. Uh, it depends a lot of that, but also depends what do you need, how is the geography. So and there's different needs. Now we are working. Now we would like to work with free and hard free and software and hardware. But we couldn't do it because it didn't satisfy the needs of here, especially specifically of here. So in that we start to doing like we are working with MikroTik, with Ubiquiti, and now we are working to the hotspot, and we can make like one recommendation is specifically for the case of doing hotspot in like a small area but with a large group of people. For a small area like a basketball court or a school, but because here we're giving the internet to the school, well, what we managed to see that really works well is this antenna that's from China, that's called Altai. But that's a specific recommendation for doing a hotspot for cell phones in a small area with a large group of people. That was a thing that we need here also a lot in Mexico because how the community works here, they do assemblies and all of the stuff, and we want to give the community a connection in that moment.
That's great. I think that's a great recommendation. Thank you. Esther's asked if you could please spell that. And I think it would be lovely for you all, maybe at the end of it, if you could just spend 5 minutes pasting in some of the links. I know, Esther, you said something about Bicel or something. Nico, it'd be great to get a link from APC on where people should go to connect and try to find other communities and so on. So yeah, if you can share those links, we'll put it into the description of this video so people can find those things. Nico, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, when Marcial and Jackie were talking about the different territories, a few other references came to mind. One is I'm talking about hardware specifically designed for supporting the connectivity of communities that are in particular in very harsh conditions. For example, one of the equipment that was developed specifically for this is called Hermes, HERMES. It's a mesh network built on top of HF radio. That HF radio has the physical characteristics that allows the signal to travel very, very long distances, even through obstacles, at the expense of having very low bandwidth. But even with very low bandwidth, like if you have low bandwidth, is much better than having no bandwidth. Communities in the Amazonia, Equatorial Amazonia from the Ecuador are using it to coordinate actions within indigenous communities, for example, and also in Brazil. And the other equipment that we are starting to explore, we have been discussing about it for long, but now we are getting a little bit more involved into or trying to experiment a little bit more, is Mesh Tastic. Meshtastic is an open source hardware that uses a LoRa radio. LoRa is a protocol that was designed for the Internet of Things. This idea where devices can be directly connected to the internet. That has a similar characteristic than Hermes, where they have low bandwidth but very high gain, the capacity to go for longer distances. But it's much more than affordable than Hermes. Hermes is in the 500 US dollars each, I think, and this is in the $40 mark. It has completely different characteristics. It doesn't go as far as Hermes. Hermes can go hundreds of kilometers because it is much more power. But still, these are equipment that have been designed thinking on mesh networks first, open source design, discussed with community networks, and some of them have been tailor-made like Hermes and Libre router for community networks.
Thank you, Nico.
Could you put the link for Hermes? Because I can't find which one is the right one. There are many
I think it's
projects.
rhizomatica.org/Hermes. I'm on the phone, so I will search it.
Yeah, I think this is like, I appreciate everything that you're saying around you know, it all depends, right? That's really hard to give an accurate, like, you should buy this, because it really depends. What's your budget? What's your topography? What's, you know, what's the use? Are you using it just to connect one person at the edge, or do you need to connect 1,000 people at a long distance? You know, so I totally understand. Like, it's a really tricky one. I think, yeah, it would be amazing if there was like somewhere you could be like, this is my scenario. And I guess this is where the community comes in. It's like, this is my scenario, put it in, and then the community, you know, the community can say, this is, you know, we've had a similar scenario like that, and this is what we used, or this is what we've learned. So I think that, yeah, it's awesome to hear that. But also, it's one of those things that people are interested in getting started with community networks. There's so many options out there for hardware. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and you know, what do I buy? What should I try? And what shouldn't I try? And so it becomes, you know, quite a daunting task in trying to select the hardware, because most people trying to build these community networks, you know, resources is probably, you know, it's quite limited. You know, you don't have these massive budgets to work with. So you want to get the right piece of software. You know, you want to probably try and get something cheap, but not so cheap that it's not going to work well. And then it's, you know, project's going to fall over. So yeah, I think it's a very, very tricky question to try to answer, but I think, again, really important one to try to do right. So thank you all. Yeah, I've got some other open questions. Are there any other recommendations that are coming up for your Sunkit? What about you? I don't think what are your recommendations or thoughts?
In terms of equipment, hardware, I guess you probably have to go to your nearest city or market area and see what kind of products are available. Many times that has been a big issue for us. We would have said, take this router, but there's no accessibility anywhere by that for that community. So then we would have to send it all the way from Bangalore, or, you know, things like that. So first thing is probably to see what is available in your neighborhood. Are there tools available? What kind of shops? You build that relationship with those shops if they could source it for you, and then we can you see how we can build a network using the available hardware that's close by, so that you can get it serviced easily, maintenance is easier, and any repair issues you will have local technicians to help you out with, you know. So trying to like look around in your surroundings itself is a good thing. And initially when we were building community radios for enclosures and stuff, we would go around junk markets and try to get like all discarded hardwares to make a enclosure with. And And one of our cute thing that we've done is this 1 rupee coin STD booth that nobody uses anymore. It's a phone booth where you put a 1 rupee a coin, like a dollar coin, and then you make a call. And that's not in use anymore. It's not in fashion anymore. But so we turned that into a radio booth, like, because we needed a keypad, we needed a small screen, we needed a mic, we needed this. So that is being junked. So we just bought it as like on the weight basis of the metal over there. And then we tweaked around with it, put in Raspberry Pis, and made a whole radio station out of it. So first thing is to like just look around your neighborhood. Yeah, what's being junked, what's available,
Wow.
and also like maybe craft traditions, and if there's some potter nearby, go use him to make another cute enclosure or something like that.
Awesome. Thank you. That's amazing. Where should we go? Are there any questions that you have for each other that are kind of coming up? Anything that you're like, oh, I'd love to ask this thing? Yeah, anything that's coming up for you all? I have
questions.
Yeah, go for it, Nico.
I think I have one for Marcial. In regards to like my question would be, what do you think are going to be challenges that you will have to face in the following 10 years that would make your community be sustainable, be there in 10 years? Like, what things are you going to face? Probably you can things that might have happened in other community engagements in the past, or probably this is a question for everyone. Like, what are the challenges that we face for making things sustainable? Yeah.
Que va a estar el mismo proyecto en 10 años, ¿no?
Ajá, pero ¿cuáles son los desafíos que tú tienes para que en 10 años siga funcionando?
But I think one of the things that you're asking, we have to keep working hard and keep learning. So in 10 years or whatever problems come, we can face them. Right now we're only 2 people. Our plan is to add more people. So I believe at some point, sometime I can leave the place, but someone else can stay here to keep working on it. So it keeps working. In 10 years, I'm sure that it's gonna be much better than now. All people can stay connected more, like good, not like now, because sometimes they lose signal. Yeah, but what I think is just work. I have learned, so and now I can teach more people, so it can continue. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Marcial. Yeah, I agree that continuation, capacity building in our network, and for trying for no one to be dependable, right? Like that's how you say it. Like you don't want anyone to be a weak bond in the community network, and yeah, that was an amazing response. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I would like to know what is the most common use for the community network? Like, the people just all go on Netflix. And it's like, that's what we're like setting these things up for. Like people can be entertained for a long time, or yeah, what's one question, like what's the most common use? And then the second question is like, what's actually the coolest, like the greatest use that you've seen, this internet community networks be used for? Or maybe, and a third question, like, is there something that you see it being used that's different other than traditional access to the internet? Is there an element that a community network brings that's different to just having internet access for, a group of people having, or community having internet access? Yeah. I had one and it turned into three. So maybe Sanket, let's start with you, my friend. I would love to know, like, what's in the community network that you set up? What's the most common use that you're seeing? And then what's like the coolest, like actually, but there's something really cool that's happening that you see as well, that it's started.
Well, in our main community network, the moment I guess we brought in internet to the community network, I would assume people just connecting to the outside world using WhatsApp was probably heavily being used. And we have these young kids who want to play games a lot. So they would, we have one free Wi-Fi hotspot in the evening. All these young boys gather around there and they start to play games, video games, and on the mobile. And that's been like you can see it like a lot of young guys gathering around at that spot in the evening at sunset times. So that's that's quite interesting to notice. In areas where we've not used a community network for internet, we've mainly used it to propagate our own radio. In one indigenous community group, the local organization was already working with the young youth over there to form a music band, and trying to revive their old traditional music, and trying to make their own instruments using bamboo. So they'd been working on that, and then our community radio came in and became a platform for them to publish their music on to the village itself, and so that's been one of our cool success stories where there's no internet. And so they themselves took up this building of the space. They initially, we just put it on a tower and we spreaded the Wi-Fi. Now they built themselves a room where they could sit and edit. They've picked up Audacity and start playing with the audio files. They do jamming and they publish it every evening on a loudspeaker also, and on the network for the people. So that's been a cool usage.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Marcial, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, the coolest thing that I think it is that I can bring internet to people who they need the service, because we have this internet. It's cheaper than the other internet providers. And the other thing is that when they have a problem with their service, they just call me, and I would right away, right after they call me, I go there and I help them whatever they need, and they feel good. They feel good, and I feel much better than that, because they call me, I can go and help, and that makes me feel very, very good. Because it's like 3 years ago that internet service provider came, which is called Connexa, and I'm in charge for that internet also, for the payments every month. But they also call me for any problem that they have with the bad, because I can't help them, because I just call to the workers from the Connexa, and they don't come like me, like right after. They don't come, and it passed like they just sometimes a week, a couple of weeks, and now it's bad service. And now after that we brought, or it came to here, our internet, and I can help people help with the service. So it's good. I feel good when I help them. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Fíjate, si Víctor le respondió.
Nico,
Queremos darnos
be interested in your perspective after visiting a lot of community networks.
So, well, I can. So yeah, people definitely WhatsApp is the go-to service. At least in Latin America, it exists before the community network, and it's definitely one of the most used services, mainly because it is zero rated. It is free if you get any prepaid service, at least in Latin America. So everyone, there is a net effect, a very strong net effect. So people usually use it, whether they are in the community network or not. Then, in relation to the ones that have caught my attention, or maybe during the pandemic, a lot of virtual education or blended education started happening. I know many cases where the deployments of a software called Colibri has happened. Like it is moving his head like this. They also, I think, experimented with that. Colibri allows using open educational resources available online to be available offline within local services in your network or even in your computer. So you can access the services being online or not, and not depending on the available bandwidth of the moment. And it provides not only the resources, but also a platform where students can track their progress in the teaching that the teachers have crafted for them, based on those open education resources. So that's a really interesting project by Learning Equality, and I have seen deployments of those in Brazil, in India, in Malawi, and in other countries too, Mexico too. Then also another case where like these innovative approaches. In Brazil, for example, a colleague from Colab, a Brazilian community network advocacy organization, have developed improvements to an instant messaging platform called Matrix to enhance the group experience, where you can have like in WhatsApp or in any instant messenger, you can have individual chats or group chats where this person develop tools around this group chat mechanism within Matrix to show information about the engagement of the members within the chat, or they were thinking about developing elements that would encourage fair trade. One of the things that they were saying was, we end up purchasing soap in the city that is 100 kilometers from where we are, when there's a neighbor that manufactures them locally. So why this is happening? Another example is Moinho Mesh, for example, that they have developed a local community portal where members can, well, where neighbors can see like a local Google Maps, like a Maps app for the community, where you can know who does what within your community through a web page. Um, yeah, there are so many examples of innovative uses are around, but I will leave it there for now. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. I would love to, if you could share those links, Nico, that would be interesting. I think the offline community communication would be a really cool kind of, I think that's, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And yeah, I think, is there any final things that you want to share? We'll move to closing off this call. Otherwise, yeah, any final comments from you all?
We are all the people in this meeting, in this call, is in the Telegram group.
Yep.
All the people in this. So we can assume that we can keep sharing, keep talking about all the things we talk here in that chat.
Yep.
Great.
That would be brilliant. Yeah, and if you're happy to, I think it might be great that we, with the video, we can also share the link. And so if other people watching the video later would like to talk to people or get connected, perhaps that Telegram group could become a bit of a network for people to ask questions or share other resources as well. We would love to, if you're working on things in community networks and you're watching this video and you have other recommendations or things for us, we would love to hear from you and be able to share that with others as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chesky. It's a great idea.
I will actually do a question back to you, Ben. I don't know if you have a lot of time, but I would really like to know, because I know that you have been getting more involved in this now that you are in digital democracy, working on the offenders toolkit and digital democracy, interested in understanding better this territory. What are your key questions or your unanswered questions or and also breakthrough discoveries maybe? So I mean, if you have any from the top of your mind, you have to rush into that question.
I think this is facilitating this kind of call is probably a bit of a response to the key questions that are coming up for us around. There's lots of knowledge that's kind of out there and people with lots of experiences, whether it be community networks, cultural preservation, mapping, language revitalization, whatever that may be. There's lots of people with experience and there's lots of resources and guides and so on out there. And we really want to, or I would love to see, we'd love to see, make it easier for people that are looking for those sorts of things, that have those questions, to be able to, like you said, find their community or find the people that have answers for that. And so this video is, for these types of calls, and we're going to be doing more. We want to be doing a video series around security, internet security, and so on. We want to do a video series around, some of the mapping, mapping tools and resources that's happening. So yeah, that's, we want to just to create, I think the most valuable thing that we can do is, and what I love about specifically, that's from this community network community, is the openness and willingness to share, like to share knowledge and experience and this open source hardware, open source software. It's amazing. So that's where we would love to go. That's, I think, hopefully that kind of answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben, for this opportunity of meeting people. So really hope to keep sharing the chat. I'm going to post all the links I can put and remember there. And also, please, if you share links here, also share it in the Telegram group so it don't get lost, please.
Absolutely, will do.
Yeah,
So
thank you,
great.
Ben, for having us here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Nice meeting you guys, Marcel and Chesky. And yeah, if you need any help, and I'm happy to help in this regard, like put in some effort in collecting resources and compiling it or something like that, then feel free to let me know.
Amazing. Thank you, Sanjay. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing today, for your openness. Appreciate you. It's great. Keep on the amazing work that you're doing. The work that you do inspires me a lot. And I think other people that watch this video will be very inspired too. So thank you for the work that you do within your communities. It's lovely to hear. Yeah, thank you. And we'll talk more. See you all.
Yeah, see you. Thank you.